To sell the news. Here we're looking at NVDA, which is resting right here on key support. And we have a really big event happening right now. It is still underway, but I want to bring this video to you as I am starting to notice something here. We can note that they have unveiled the successor to their all-conquering AI processor. But we're going to look at a couple of charts here because something is very ominous to me. Bitcoin faced a sell the news moment after record high was set. Let's go back over here to Nvidia. Why? Let's look and see where it is. It's on its daily uptrend. And what do we have? Well, we don't really have a positive reaction quite yet. Let's now go to Bitcoin, but I want you to pay attention to this uptrend here because it's really important. Now let's go look at Bitcoin. There's the uptrend. And initially what we did was bounce one time, right? We bounced once, two, three times. But then finally, on the third try, we just couldn't really hold it, and now we've actually lost it. We're now down by over 11% off our relative high. We also note that the biggest bars here are red. So there were warning signs that people were selling, and we're just below the previous all-time high. Really important to note that today's high at 68,933 is just below our previous all-time high at 69,000. So it took a couple of days, but we are finally starting to see that we're no longer going up and we're starting to go sideways, which means that the potential for us to go lower starts to increase. I don't want to read too much into this yet, but we talked about how we could potentially have an opposite week where in the first and second half of the week, we could be noticing a different change. The next thing I want to point out here on NVDA is just that we have gone up in a really high uptrend, which means that this is a really acute angle. Looked at a different way, we can grab a trend angle and note that this is currently a 45-degree angle. It's not that we can't hold on to it. It's just that it's going to get increasingly difficult. And if we start to lose momentum or go sideways, the chances that we could fall back down. Let me show you one more piece of evidence here. So if we go here to the pre-market heat map, what do we note? Man, it was a bull party. Google was up 5%. NVDA was up 2.9. Tesla was up 4. And Apple was also green. Well, what happened during the day? Or where did we actually close? Oh, it's a little bit less bullish, right? Google held on to a lot of its gains. Tesla went higher. Nvidia only closed up by 0.7, which means it's actually lower than it was in pre-market. Pre-market, it was 2.8. It opened up and sold off. So this is a different way of trying to look at the data. And now finally, here in post-market or after hours, Nvidia's red. So it was most bullish before Jensen spoke. He's still talking right now, so I'm not sure exactly where we're going to close out. But like I mentioned, we already got the major headline that they've introduced Blackwell chips, which is going to be the successor here. All right, I'm going to ask you for a huge favor. If you could please consider smashing that thumbs up and subscribing to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. So I don't really want to read too much beyond the headline because that's what this event's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about hype. And initially, it did not look like we were getting a double top on Bitcoin, but now it kind of looks like we are. We'll see where we close out the month. We're currently about halfway through it. So why did the market open up green this morning with a gap up? Apple in talks to let Google's Gemini power iPhone AI features, Bloomberg reports. So this is important because both of these stocks have had some trouble lately. We can notably see that here if we go to year to date, right? Who are the losers? Well, it's Apple. Google's back to green year to date. So that helped it pretty much today, up by 6.59%. Ironically, I think a lot of its gains are actually going to be coming from today. So Apple and Google have, until today, all right, Google was worse. It kind of sucked. And Tesla was the other loser here. So at least for now, it looks like it's starting to shake it off a little bit. So we just got through GTC. We're starting that. We had a Russian election, but let's be honest, it wasn't really an election. We got European CPI. Did we get that this morning? Let me actually double check that. I did not remember to check. Yes, we did. It came in at 2.6%. So inflation's coming down, at least in Europe. We'll see what happens for the rest of this week for the data going into the US. So we now got through the most important data point for the week. And as I noted, again, we were stronger at the open than we were at the close for NVDA. We're not down by a lot. Like, come on, it's 1%. The stock's been an absolute monster. But we've noticed that it usually would go up after the earnings call, right after Jensen spoke. Right now, we're just down a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to flush tomorrow, but if we see another full candle like we do here, it looks like we are getting a dead cat bounce. And on the third try, maybe we're going to fall over, right? Roll over. That's what Bitcoin did. Let's look at that one more time here. So one bounce, two bounce. On the third bounce, well, that's where we start to go lower. It's also important to note that the S&P actually gapped up back inside the channel that we talked about on the weekend. And notably, it's different on SPY or SPX because we have a dividend that was issued here. So what does that mean? It means this channel here, which has been very well respected. And again, encourage you to watch until the end and the weekend review if you did not already, where we talked about where we go from the bottom, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top. And now we're hovering around the bottom, which means that we actually have a breach and we're starting to show some weakness here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 full candles in a row. We've been selling off since the open. We also have pretty big sell bars here. Same thing as we saw on Bitcoin. So as we look here to our weekly chart, we now have another inside bar or a double inside bar. But as we're butting up against the upper end of this channel, again, looks like more like a megaphone, we note that the odds increase that we could be getting a sell down to the bottom. So we talked about what confirmation would look like on SPY, which is going to come with a weekly lower low. And for the NASDAQ, we note that we already have a lower low, two lower lows, and we got two lower highs as of right now. It's an inside bar, but if QQQ does lose this uptrend, I suspect it's going to start to drag down these other indices like SPY. So we do have another panel with Jensen on Wednesday. That'll be important because only an hour and a half later, we're going to hear from Jerome Powell. The Fed decides at 2 p.m. and Jerome comes out at 2:30. So the other important things we had for this week were that we talked about Bitcoin being a leading indicator. Well, wherever Bitcoin goes, Ether goes more. So Ether is down by quite a bit here, right? From its relative high at about 4,000. I think we're down quite a bit now. Let's double check. So from high to low, we're down by about 17%. Yeah, that's a pretty good cut. It's almost a bear market for Ether. And same thing here, mostly red volume, which means selling. So we talked about how we were due for a dip this weekend. And I think it really comes down to whatever happens into the close of this event at GTC and what happens into the open tomorrow. But I think the focus is going to start to shift to Jerome, who as of right now is getting very high praises from CFOs. We talked about this on the weekend, so I'm not going to elaborate on that too much more. But the Bitcoin sell the news was really important because we noted that the S&P actually is still in a blue sky breakout in an annual bullish level. But as of right now, we're battling for that 511, right? So we closed Friday out at 509, which is below. Now we're back above, but man, it's choppy. And QQQ is already giving us that warning by falling back below 441, which means a monthly failed breakout. So if we go here to our monthly chart, we are technically below our previous monthly high. We're red on the month, and last month's high is 440.59. So if you want more context, I would encourage you to watch the weekend deep dive now over here on the left-hand side. If not, come hang out with me at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in.